That mums always tell me that they're struggling with is motivation. I think we know when we're in that state, when we feel really driven and our mind's on track and we've made a decision about something that we're going to go after and we have the motivation to stick it out and we go hardcore and we just attain it, right? And then there are those moments where we know it's something that we should do and yet we're not committed to it. And so that motivation lingers or, falls apart. And what happens in those moments is that's when that pendulum swing occurs. So like we're on and we're committed and we're like, yes, we're going to do this. And I know this is good for me and I'm going to make all these changes. And then we fall off the wagon or we make one mistake and then our motivation swings to the other side and we're like, this is too hard and I'm not capable. And the only time that our motivation swings from confident, I'm onto it and I feel in charge and in control, to I feel defeated, I can't do this and I'm out of control, is when, first of all, our mindset isn't on track, because our mindset has changed from uplifting, encouraging thoughts to bringing ourselves down and quite a negative internal dialogue. And the only time that we drop in our state and that we're not charging forward and chasing after our goals and that motivation is lacking is actually when we're not aware of what I refer to as our leverage. Now, your leverage is your deeper purpose to why you need to make these changes. This is the long-term goals that you want to go after, the person that you want to be and the things that you want to achieve. You need to understand the brain, right? So there are two different centers in the brain. We have short-term gratification, we have long-term gratification. Now, when I'm talking about short-term gratification, I'm talking about choosing to eat the chocolate bar. We feel happy in that moment, serves a purpose, and great, done. Long-term gratification, on the other hand, is realizing that we don't want to eat the chocolate bar because, first of all, we want to lose weight. We want to be on this planet for as long as possible. And we know that after we eat the chocolate bar, we feel guilty a lot of the time. And then we're not working towards long-term goals. Now, I'm not saying we don't eat the chocolate bar at all. That's just an example of choosing short-term gratification over long-term gratification. Now, what happens in the brain is the brain gets hardwired towards one particular direction. So people that are overweight are generally hardwired for short-term gratification. They're not really thinking long-term about the ramifications of their behaviors and their habits if they continue to go down the path that they're on. And so they just go for that short-term satisfaction. Whereas people who have their weight in control are very successful in life and generally very results-driven, have long-term gratification focus, and that part in their brain is highly developed. Now, what happens is the more time you exercise one or the other, so the more time you exercise your impulse control, your self-control, making positive choices, looking at who you want to be in the long term, being very goals and results driven, the more frequently you do that, the more quickly you can rewire your brain to go down that path more often. Now, that heavily affects your motivation. If you feel that you know what your results are, you know who you want to be, you know why this matters to your core, why you get up in the morning, and why it is that you need to make these changes, whether it be for your children, for your partner, for yourself, for your overall happiness. A lot of the mums I talk to just genuinely want to be happier with themselves and they want to be more confident. And when I have a really deep discussion about where they are now and how the decisions that they're making, those short-term gratification choices that they're making, how that's going to continue to negatively affect them or positively influence them in some ways of their life. But for a lot of the mums I'm working with, those short-term gratification choices are negatively affecting the way that they feel about themselves, increasing their levels of anxiety and depression as a result of upsetting the microbiome in their gut. When we eat poor foods, it does upset our stomach bugs. And so what happens is they start to feel more depressed about the choices that they're making in their life as a whole. Now, when mums understand and actually reflect on where they are and the choices that they're making and how they could, if they chose to make positive changes, how they could chase after those results and the person that they could be, when they actually reflect on the person that they could be as a result of letting some of those habits and behaviors go and looking at the long-term gratification and the results that they're going to get as a result of letting those habits go, suddenly the motivation is not this massive thing that swings from side to side. They understand that they need to make a commitment to it, and their mindset changes and they can make a commitment to it. Now, you also have to know that motivation lingers when there's a lack of self-love. So if you're going after these short-term gratifications and you find that you're upset with yourself as a result of that, so there's a lot of guilt occurring in that cycle, you feel bad about yourself, you speak poorly to yourself, you put yourself down, you feel like a failure when it comes to diets, you compare yourself to others and you think that you're not enough, and you just have quite a negative view on yourself, that lack of self-love heavily affects your motivation. Just like if we had a child and we put down our kids and we constantly told them that they were no good at school, they couldn't read, they weren't going to achieve anything, they were never going to get there, a parent would never speak to their child like that. Well, a reasonable parent. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But if we speak to children like that, the way that we spoke to ourselves, we can't expect them to then jump out of bed and feel highly motivated the next morning and want to do really positive things that make them feel good. So a lot of the motivation can be linked to the choices that you're making and the habits and behaviors that you're displaying there and the way that your brain is wired. Know that you can rewire your brain, but also your motivation is linked to how much you love yourself and how much you think you're worthy of these changes. Because if you're in a place where you don't think you're worthy and you don't think you're capable of making those changes, why on earth would you put anything in place? Why on earth would you work towards being better and being, stronger for tomorrow and more confident in tomorrow or in your future if you don't actually believe that you deserve it? A lot of the mums that I talk to go into diets wholeheartedly thinking that they're going to fail. They might sign up and they might be a 4-week program or a 3-week program, something like that, but they actually expect to fail, which is really sad because when they do fail, they're never shocked. And the problem is that they actually don't think that they're capable of making serious change in this area of their life. They also don't think that they're worthy. And so I spend a lot of time talking with mums about how they view themselves and are they aware of the impact of the small decisions that they're making on a daily basis and how that's going to add up in the long run. So what I want you to do is I want you to reflect on why this actually matters to you. Why do you want to be a healthier person? Do you want to live longer? Do you want to see your children grow up? Do you want to be a healthy role model for them? Do you want to bring them into a home where they're not dealing with the same health issues, confidence issues, and struggles that you're dealing with now? Because if that's something that really matters to you, then all of a sudden that short-term gratification that you're going after and those short-term solutions and that lack of self-control that you're feeling there, suddenly you know that you need to address that. And that can be done. You can rewire your brain to go from short-term gratification to long-term gratification, but you have to be aware of why this is important to you and you have to sit down and reflect on it. So what I'd like you to do today is actually just take some time to think about why you want this. Who do you want to be in 12 months' time? Because if you don't make any changes today or next week or the week after, which let's be honest, for a lot of the mums, they've been battling with this for 10 or 15 years, maybe 20 years. And so making change is getting harder and harder for them. And they know themselves that if they don't seriously crack down on it and work out why this matters to them and start to eliminate some of those excuses and identify those habits and behaviors of those small things that they're doing throughout the day, that lack of self-control throughout the day that's not enabling them to have the long-term results that they want, that lack of understanding is keeping them exactly where they are, and that heavily influences their motivation. What I want you to also do is watch the way that you speak to yourself. Because if you're constantly giving excuses, that excuses is that short-term gratification. Oh, I should exercise, but I'm not going to just because I haven't got time. Like in that moment, that gives you gratification. But for a lot of the mums I talk to, that actually makes them feel guilty later on because they're like, well, I probably should have made time. I had time for that, but I chose not to have time for that. And they know it's an excuse, but they're not eliminating it. So looking at all those small decisions that you're making on a daily basis and the things that are holding you back, that's what's affecting your motivation. When you understand the whole reason why you want to do this and why this matters to you, the person that you want to be, then those little things start to remove themselves and you can actually work on moving towards long-term gratification and being that person of your dreams. Being confident, in control, and the role model that you really dream of and desire. So please do some reflection. I encourage you to write it down in a journal. Why does this matter to you? What do you have to tackle in those short-term gratification, those small habits that you're doing on a daily basis that are holding you back? And work out what can we start to tackle one at a time from those so that we can remove that lack of motivation that exists, remove those excuses that are coming up and then holding you in this place, which, let's be honest, you're not happy there anyway. If people want to change their health, they're generally not in a very happy space. They want action, but they're just not taking it. And so you have to work out what the underlying cause is of those excuses, and that's because you don't understand your leverage. And when you know your leverage and your reasons why, that motivation will kick off and you'll be soaring into your future and feeling really good about yourself.